order. And we have some special guests this evening, and Mr. Dusler is going to introduce them for us.
Thank you. Members of council, Mr. Manager, solicitor, I'd like to introduce you to the Girl Scouts of the Heartbeat of Pennsylvania Junior Troop 30250 from Mountaintop, PA, and their leader is Miss Donna Good. 3, 4.
Let's stand, please. You want us?
To the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We're going to have a moment of silence, please.
Thank you. Thank you again.
Thank you, young ladies.
This will help our Girl Scouts get their government badge tonight.
Well, that's great.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations. Okay. Roll call, please.
Mr. Hawes?
Here.
Mrs. Haug? Here. Mr. Kelleher?
Here.
Mr. Perry?
Here.
Ms. Edmond? Here. Mr. Schnee?
Present.
Mr. Urban? Mr. Vogt?
Here.
Ms. Wakes?
Present.
Mr. McGinley?
Present. 9.
9.
Okay. Mr. Berminski is with us on the phone. We need a motion for Mr. Berminski to call in. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Mr. Kelleher, second. Ms. Wakes? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. So Mr. Berminski is now part of the program this evening. At 5:30 this evening, we had a recognition for the Hazleton Challenger Little League out in the Rotunda. It was well received. They had 17 players, I think, this evening, 4 coaches, the president of the league, and also the regional president. So it was a nice group of people from Hazleton with the Challenger program. They did a great job. Any additions or deletions to the voting session agenda? Hearing none, do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Schnee, Ms. Segman, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Public comment on agenda items. Mr. Perez? Mr. Perez? No? Agenda items?
We're going to speak in the public session.
Okay, so at the end?
Yes.
Mr. Griffin? That's yourself? Ron Dombrowski?
I'm on 9.
Okay. Dr. Eisen, you're not agenda also? Thank you. Mr. Ola? Didn't check, I guess. Okay. Mr. Troy.
Good evening, folks. Happy fall. I see on the agenda that we're going to receive, or you folks, not us, are going to receive budget submission. And for those of you who've been here for a number of years, I'm going to give you the same B-School budget lecture. I'm going to bet, and I hope I'm wrong, I hate to lose, but this one I'd love to. I'll bet the submission you receive or received does not comply with the definition of a budget. Again. Does anybody remember what the first page after the add a person page, what the first page of a budget, any real budget, what the title of that page says? Anybody? Nobody. How about the audience?
Mr. Ola, please address the council, please.
Well, I didn't get any answer from you guys. It's called the assumptions page, or pages. Has anybody read the budget submission so far? on
Just
council?
submitted tonight, right at this
Okay.
moment.
So you haven't seen an advance copy?
I don't believe so.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to recommend that if there's no assumption page to the lead of this budget submission, that it be rejected, not accepted. Sooner or later, we're going to have to start getting things right. Associated with that was a few months ago, there was a capital plan submitted, but both GASB and the charter says that it was supposed to be an operational, financial, and long-range plan. The long-range piece never got delivered. Financial piece never got delivered. The operational piece never got delivered. Just the capital piece got delivered in a way. So we're still waiting for the other couple legs of that chair. And the question then is for future open item is, when are they going to be fulfilled? Lastly, I see we now have regained the topic of old business, and there's a couple that I remember, many that I don't. One of them is, who put in the county roads leading to the Hanover Industrial Park and specifically the state vehicle building? And when are we going to sue the contractor for gross malfeasance for the implementation of that roadway? And there are a few more, but we'll save them for the next time. Oh, lastly, with regard to the budget, I hope this year, with all the meetings you've got scheduled, that you at least address the 65% of the budget, the ops budget, that heretofore has not been evaluated, just merely quantified the head count. We've put in all these productivity savings, major capital spending items, and have not seen one dime of return yet. I would think that eventually, after all these years, we start to see a little payback from this, which should be reflected in the operational piece of this budget, specifically with regard to headcount. Thank you.
Ms. Perez, do you want to speak at the end of Margie Perez, right? Okay. Sam Choi?
A couple of questions on the agenda items I'd like to get answers to. And I could comment on the budget, right? That's part of the agenda, I assume.
That's correct.
The resolution authorizing the county manager to execute the sale of a property in Hazleton Township. I read something regarding that in the paper. And I think before council votes on that, specifics should be released to the public. For instance, I know it was in the paper, but I'd like to know how many acres it is, what the price was, and was the price arrived at with the proper assessor? Is there a real estate assessor who came to this figure, whatever it is? I think this thing should be spelled out before anybody votes on it. I assume you have the information and we don't. But if that's the case, it should be spelled out for the public to look at before this thing is put through. And also, regarding the budget, I think that I'm glad I have at least a couple of minutes to talk about this. I guess that's a little more time than you allowed to push through Mr. Pedry's contract. That took place in a matter of seconds, from what I understand. I wasn't here for it. But I assume that the ordinance that you're going to adopt tonight is not a final ordinance. I mean, I know there's going to be discussion. This thing doesn't pass till this. I guess the deadline is December 1st. Is that right?
December 15th.
Well, there's going to be a lot of public discussion, and I hear they're laying odds in Vegas. Is it 4-1 or something against the possibility that there is not going to be a tax increase? So we're
I don't know about Vegas, but we're in here in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, Luzerne County.
I'm hoping that, maybe those odds will come down. And I think personally, and I want to just comment on this and hope that council will, to some extent, will take this into consideration. We have I guess, going back a few years to when we had the 3 commissioners, and I think that was a friendlier, more congenial system for the taxpayer, at least in terms of passing a budget. I don't see why this person, who's not an elected official, who has a majority behind him on this council to push through an outrageous contract, is going to be allowed to even submit this budget without consultation of the public, without releasing even any figures yet. I mean, it's a complete surprise so far. I know it will come to light, I guess, in this meeting, all the facts and figures, and whether there's going to be a tax increase. But I think council ought to seriously consider an amendation to the county charter, the home rule charter, to form some kind of ad hoc committee made up of citizens and maybe a couple council members and whoever to discuss this budget before it's introduced. So we can bypass perhaps one person who has so much power and usually, all it takes is a simple majority on the council to pass this thing, and the taxpayers are going, the property tax owners in this county, which have already endured a $5 vehicle tax thanks to certain people on this council.
Mr. Troy, your 3 minutes are up, so you'll have another opportunity at the end of the...
I have another 5 seconds?
No, you'll have another 3 minutes like you have.
Okay,
Like
I just
anyone
want to
else.
say, just let me finish by saying I hope that the council will come to its senses if there is a tax increase in here and start to think of ways to work around that, such as perhaps pension fund reform or another way of finding expenditures and ways of cutting, ways of increasing revenue. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else? That was people who indicated they wanted to speak. We have their slips, but anyone else in the audience? Okay, thank you. Moving down to agendized motion to approve the minutes from September 25th.
So moved.
Ms. Wakes. Ms. Segman. On the question? All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any in opposition? No. Mr. Urban? Any abstentions? None heard, motion carries. Moving over to the second page. Motion to adopt a resolution authorizing county manager to execute the sale of the county-owned property located at Hazleton Township to Walter Bevins. This came from the Real Estate Committee. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Mr. Schnee? Second? Ms. Segman? On the question. Ms. Wakes, you want to speak to this?
Yes, this is a property that actually I visited today at the exterior I'm talking about today. The location is 340 Main Street, Hazleton Township. We've been discussing this, oh golly, for at least the last several meetings. The property, without giving the history of the property, I can attest to the general condition, which is not good. Apparently, the property suffered a fire, I don't know how long ago. And there's been some attempt to repair and kind of secure the property. It needs a new roof. Let me just say it needs a great amount of work. And we recently discovered that the property is deeded to the county and has been for I don't know how long, many years. The same family has resided in the property for many, many, many years. I'm not quite sure how many. And the real estate committee at the time recommended the property be deeded to the longtime family, or the deed be placed in the name of a representative of the family for $500.
Thank you. Mr. Snee, you want to?
On a question, I also visited the property. I'll share with anyone the pictures. I've shared them with the media. and shared them with Mr. Shiner. I mean, you saw the property. It's an old mine house. It not only needs a new roof, it needs all new siding. It needs a new chimney. They just started putting new windows in. It needs a couple new windows. And nobody was on the inside to see the extent of the damage that was done on the inside. And across the street, it's an old mine house that's been there 100 years. Across the street is where that fire was burning in the strippings. So, again, I have pictures. I'll share the pictures with anyone in the audience if they want to see what the house looks like.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I have a couple questions.
Go ahead, Mr. Urban.
Since this is a county-owned property and the county has insurance, I would hope on all of its properties, whether they're known or not known, is this covered under an insurance policy? If it's not, why not?
It would be covered because all county-owned properties are covered by our insurance.
Okay. Oh,
so this would be something that would come off the insurance.
But it's on the insurance now.
Every piece of property the county owns is on the insurance.
Okay, so the county can actually fix this up with insurance funds and then dispose of the property if they wish, rather than giving it away for $500. Because if it's insured and there was a fire and there was no criminal intent or no criminal activity, according to what you said, I think, at the last meeting, why didn't we go after the insurance that the county pays dearly for every year, get the property fixed up, and sell the property like it should be sold? Why are we giving it away for $500? That's one issue. The second issue is, if you do vote to give it away today for $500, are these people going to be responsible for the taxes at the assessed value for this year and any prior years, or just next year forward? Those are questions that I have. And without those answers, I'm going to vote no.
I have a question.
Yes, Ms. Sagan.
Mr. Pedrick, one of the things that comes to mind that this county has been deeded to the county, and somebody else has been living there for quite a while and they haven't paid taxes. Is there a potential for litigation on adverse possession by them if we were to go ahead and assert our rights?
Well, these individuals have been living on county property for over 20 years on a piece of property that the county was not aware that it owned up until a recent review of all the deeds. So I would believe they would have a solid claim for adverse possession, but I'm not acting as an attorney.
Okay, so if my understanding of adverse possession is correct, if they went ahead and filed an adverse possession claim, it would cost us a great deal more than $500.
That's my understanding as well. It would not be litigation that I would recommend counsel enter into.
Okay.
Anyone else?
Yes, on that question. We have a staff of lawyers in this county, and I hope any litigation such as that would be handled by the lawyers who are paid for day in and day out by the taxpayers of this county, and not sent outside to some outside law firm. I hope the lawyers in this county are competent enough to deal with an adverse possession case. If they're not, then maybe we need to think about getting new lawyers.
Ms. Huck?
Yeah, I was wondering if there is an answer on the question that Mr. Urban raised about the taxes going forward, or are they bringing them up to date, or?
My understanding is that any property owner begins the taxes the day they purchase the property. That's my understanding.
On what value? What would the value be then?
It would be the assessed value. Now, every individual has the right to appeal their assessed value. So I don't know if this individual would appeal this or not, but it's currently assessed at $43,000. So they'll receive a tax bill for $43,000 for the remainder of 2018 and then 2019.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, before we even enter this anymore, that property's not worth $3,000. Ask Mr. Shiner. They showed him pictures. Come on now, it's not. Whoever went out there and assessed that at 43, they had to do it at nighttime in the pitch dark, because it's not a question. Anybody could go there and see the property. It's not even in question.
Totally agree with you, Robert.
$3,000 at the high for the property.
Property assessments are based upon two factors, the land and the improvement, both. You telling me the land's not worth nothing that it sits on? That's an appraiser looks at property. And he looks at what the lot's worth, and he looks at what the improvement's worth.
Steve.
You don't know what the improvement is, and you don't know what the land value is in that area for that lot. So I think what you're saying.
There's a fire across the street for 40
well,
years.
so what? And there's people living on that street for 40 years, right? There's been fires in Laurel Run for 40 or 50 years, and people are still living in trailer courts in Laurel Run. They're living in Wilkes-Barre Township, and there's mine fires up there. It's nuts.
Yes, Mr. Urban, have you driven by the property?
No.
You said you were going to.
No, I didn't go by the
Okay, I went by the property. I'm no longer a certified insurance appraiser, and I don't pretend to be one now. I'm not licensed as an appraiser. However, I totally agree with Mr. Schnee. Having laid eyes on it personally today, even the land, I'd be surprised if the land is worth much in this location. I also have a photo if anybody would like to look at it. I have a side view, not a front view. So I recommend that the property be sold for the sum of $500.
Second.
Okay, yeah, we have, you made the motion, Mr. Sneed, Ms. Saban made the second.
And one other question. At the point it's sold, we are no longer liable for that property. Is that correct?
Mark?
Correct, yes.
Okay.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Mr. Berminski?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Ms. Howe?
Yes.
Mr. Kelleher?
Yes.
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Ms. Sedman?
Yes.
Mr. Schnee?
Yes.
Mr. Urban?
No.
Mr. Vogt?
Yes.
Ms. Wakus?
Yes.
Mr. McGinley?
Yes.
10 to 1.
Thank you. Motion carries. Second item, we have a motion to adopt a resolution declaring a vacancy in Luzerne County Community College Board of Trustees. The letter of resignation is attached. Mr. Slusser, who had been appointed, is resigning from his position on the LCC Board of Trustees.
So moved.
Mr.
Second.
Kelleher. Do we have a second? Mr. Urban? On the question?
Question.
Yes.
When was he appointed, please?
In January?
This past January?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Roll call, please.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Ms. Howe?
Yes.
Mr. Kelleher?
Yes.
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Ms. Sedman? Yes. Mr. Schnee?
Yes.
Mr. Urban?
Yes.
Mr. Vogt?
Yes.
Ms. Wakus?
Yes.
Mr. Berminski?
Yes.
Mr. McGinley?
Yes.
Unanimous.
Unanimous. Thank you. At our last meeting, we had a vacancy declared on the Luzerne County Board of Trustees. We have 9 people who are on our eligible list for that position. Mr. Kelleher, would you like to comment in that regard?
Well, we have 9 people. I'm not going to be specific about any one except that they all have been interviewed, and I'll just say that they've all been interviewed and approved.
Thank you. We'll have a motion to open nominations.
So move.
Mr. Kelleher.
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Haas. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Nominations.
I'd like to nominate Holly Evanowski.
Mr. Kelleher nominates Holly Evanowski. Do we have a second? Ms. Segman. Any other nominations? Yes.
I nominate Cecilia Shamola.
Cecilia Shimola?
Yes.
Yep. Ms. Hauk? And who seconds that? Mr. Urban?
Yeah.
Any other nominations?
Motion to close, Mr.
Who
Chairman.
was the last nominee, please?
Cecilia Shimola?
Thank you.
Close the nominations, Mr. Haas?
Yes, sir.
Do we have a second? Mr. Kelleher, all in favor of closing nominations indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we'll go around, roll call, and you'll indicate whether you support Holly Evanowski or Cecilia Shimola.
Ms. Howe?
Shamola?
Mr. Kelleher?
Evanosky.
Mr. Perry?
Evanosky.
Ms. Sedman?
Evanosky.
Mr. Schnee?
Evanosky.
Mr. Urban?
Shamola.
Mr. Vogt?
Evanosky.
Ms. Wakes?
Evanosky.
Mr. Breminski?
Shimola.
Mr. Haas?
Ms. Evanosky.
Mr. McGinley?
Ms. Evanosky?
8-3.
8-3. So Ms. Evanosky will be the person that we will support for position on the Luzerne County Board of Trustees. Do we need a motion for the resolution to appoint Ms. Evanosky?
So moved.
Mr. Kelleher?
Second.
Second. Ms. Saban? On the question?
On the question, I just want to comment. Ms. Evanosky is a graduate of the community college, and she's very active in the Alumni Association. I didn't want to mention that beforehand as if I was trying to prejudice the nomination.
Thank you. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Kelleher?
Yes.
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Ms. Sedman?
Yes.
Mr. Schnee?
Yes.
Mr. Urban?
No.
Mr. Vogt?
Yes.
Ms. Wakes?
Yes.
Mr. Breminski?
Yes.
Mr. Haas?
Yes.
Ms. Howe?
Yes.
Mr. McGinley?
Yes.
10-1.
10-1, motion carries. Moving down to number 4, introduction of the ordinance adopting the 2019 fiscal year budgets for Luzerne County. Per the charter, the responsibility of providing the draft budget to the council is the manager. Because the manager is introducing the budget this evening, we do not have to have a roll call vote per the charter. So we'll turn that over to Mr. Pedri.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good evening, everybody.
Thanks.
We're here again. It is my honor and duty to submit to you the 2019 proposed Luzerne County budget. As everybody in this room is well aware, this is merely the starting point of a marathon until we reach the final vote on December 10th. There are a couple big things that we have to talk about that I want to highlight in this, and then obviously we'll be reviewing this budget with each division head and department head actually throughout the months of October and November and December as we proceed. Council will see on your table in front of you is the Luzerne County budget in the attractive blue binders this year. We split them up this year. They're split up by division, and every department is within that particular division. The website will also have a copy of this budget as well as the 2019 proposed position budget. As soon as we're done with this, Chris is going to be posting that to our website as well. And the ordinance is my duty now to introduce to you. It will be introduced for your review as a county council. So let's get right down to it. The big question is, will there be a proposed tax increase? And as a county manager, my job is to seek out what the best options are for the county and what the best standing is going forward. That is why I'm proposing to County Council a 3% tax increase to be reviewed in the 2019 budget. This would be an increase of $3,150,000 to the budget. This is approximately $18 increase for each property assessed at $100,000. Let's be honest. We've made some great strides here in Luzerne County. Our credit rating is back to investment grade, the lowest level of investment grade. Our debt has been paid, and we've continually done phenomenal with regard to our audits. And if you look at the last audit, the 2017 audit, you'll see that we are happy to be out of the deficit that was incurred. But we still have a lot of work to do. I look at us as if we're a patient. We got through the intensive care unit. We're through the ICU. And now we're in physical rehab. Now we're at the point where are we going to go from here? We still have a lot of work to do in order to fully establish what is the basis for the financial purposes of Luzerne County moving forward. This balance in front of you has $140,947,657 in revenue and expenses. It carries 1,560 positions. That includes part-time and full-time Luzerne County employees. It does not propose any new positions for the 2019 budget. Last couple years, I sat in front of council and I said I will be seeking new positions, and will you support me or not support me on this one? Due to the fact that we're seeking a tax increase this year, we are not asking for any new positions in the 2019 budget. The millage rate increases from 5.9754 to 6.1547. The reserve will have $1,050,000 in the proposal, and the pension goes up to $9,350,000. And our debt service, as we discussed numerous times in this room, goes up by over $4.2 million this year to $25 million. That amount of money for that debt service, we are now at a fixed cost. We talked about some of those bad debts that we were saddled with as the home rule government, and those were debts that were continually fluctuating, continually changing rates. We now have a low set cost. The 2017 refinancing was a major victory for Luzerne County. We were able to lower our debts. We were able to get on fixed costs that year. We were able to stay clear of a 2018 budget tax increase in the 2018 budget based upon these refinancing and these numbers. The baseball lawsuit was another big win in 2017. All those things are behind us, though, and we have to be looking forward. So if we move to the revenue side of things, one thing that I will be seeking for in this budget, and that I have asked council to take a full account on, and this PowerPoint presentation has been provided to Sharon, and Sharon, I ask that you share it with all of council when you get a chance. The PowerPoint, I just handed it to you. The PowerPoint presentation. Okay? So all numbers are approximations at this point, but the revenue has to come into play. It's a $3.1 million tax increase. Ladies and gentlemen, when it comes down to revenue, the revenue in Luzerne County in past budgets have been over-aggressive in certain areas. We said that we were going to collect a certain amount of money, and we balanced our budgets based upon that money. What we have seen through our audits and through our budgets, and this is now my third budget that I have the honor of presenting to County Council, is that those numbers were not correct, and we weren't meeting those revenue numbers. So I can stand up here and wage over and you know, kind of slide over them and say, hey, listen, no big deal, we'll get there this year, and worry about that when the audit comes around. But that's not right, because we're not hitting these numbers. And we're consistently not hitting these numbers, which means our revenue numbers have to change, and they have to be done the right way. Now, we have increased revenue in planning and zoning. Through the hard work of interim head Dave Skronsky and his team over in planning and zoning, they've really revamped their efforts to try to get monies in from PennDOT, and we feel comfortable with a $90,000 revenue increase. And tomorrow with the IT department, we'll begin direct billing for his services to human services as well. So we're talking about a revenue increase of $3.3 million. But there are three areas that I had to cut revenue on, and this went back and forth on with myself and Brian Sweats from our Budget and Finance office, and Chris D'Alessandro here from our Budget and Finance office. But we're not hitting these numbers. We cut the probation revenue numbers by $400,000. We cut domestic relations by $250,000. And we cut prior year taxes by $140,000. The reason why we did this, we weren't hitting these numbers in the past. And we are consistently not hitting these numbers, which means that we're starting in a hole when it comes to the audit. And we're at a point right now where we're through our deficit, and we're talking about real dollars. We're not talking about deficit numbers in an accounting spreadsheet and what does that mean. We're through that. We're now talking about real dollars and real surpluses that we can do things with here in Luzerne County. Moving to the expense side, we're asking for an increase of $2.5 million. This obviously comes with $4.2 million in debt service that council is well aware of. When PFM came in, they sat down, they said everybody where we're at. One of the most frustrating numbers for me is the $570,000 in retirement. I was a big proponent, as well as member of this council as well, to double pay the pension last year. And it was the right thing to do because we're paying current year's bills with current year's money. But that pension retirement, like every other place, like every municipality, continues to go up. We are currently 72% funded. And that is a promise that was made to Luzerne County employees in the past, that pension will be there. So we are seeking an increase based upon the actuarial's recommendation of $570,000 in retirement. Healthcare went up by $280,000. Personnel costs, which include our represented contracted raises, as well as a 3% increase for non-represented employees, come out to $483,000, an increase from 2018. In the past, I came to you, County Council, and I said I'm seeking a 3% increase for non-represented individuals. Those individuals didn't have a raise in 7 years, and I wanted to base those raises on a merit review. You don't just show up to work and get a raise. Some people got zeros and some people got a higher number. I went last year from a spread from 0 to 6. Now I see that number was too wide. Where we really should be is from 0 to 3%. Council supported us last year for those people to get a 2% raise, and I'm asking council for your support on that again. The district attorney has asked for an increase of $210,000 due to capital cases and witnesses that she's trying or set to try in 2019. $400,000 increase to the Luzerne County Correctional Facility. The health care, our contract that this council approved is up in April of 2019. The proposals are in. We're in the middle of negotiating and interviewing those individuals now. We're seeking an additional $200,000 for potential costs in health care. Hopefully we come in less than that. And we're also asking for additional $200,000 in overtime. The addition, as Mr. Rakovich will sit down and tell you, we have done an incredible amount of projects in that prison. In 2017 and 2018. This has caused overtime to go up. Every time you have somebody come in to fix the elevators, every time you have somebody come in to fix those showers, every time you have somebody to fix the chillers that we're going to be talking about later, we got to have those individuals with a guard on them. In addition, we're talking about hospital runs. So anytime we talk about these things, we're talking about overtime. We just hired a class of an additional 12 corrections officers. It seems corrections officers and children and youth caseworkers are my number 1 and number 2 hires. I continually hire them. They resign, they retire, they move on to other duties, but we are continually filling those roles. That's a tough job. And while we continually train and get the new people up to speed, that means overtime has to be paid as well. There's a $160,000 increase for the Budget and Finance Division and a $55,000 increase for Managed Print. And then we reduce the expenses in the reserve by $3.9 million. I told you last year when we had a $4 million reserve in the 2018 budget, that is going to be a luxury that we will not be able to have again. That was the highest reserve that I've seen here in my time here at the county. We're back to just over $1 million in the proposed 2019 budget. Moving forward to the prior year operating budgets. I wanted to bring this up to County Council's attention. FY 2017, we had an approximately $180,000 primary surplus. Now, by primary, I mean the operating costs. Okay, this doesn't include the one-time grabs. This doesn't include the refinancing. This doesn't include the baseball settlement. We had a $180,000 primary surplus. That budget was $138 million, $137 million actually. So that means that our line there was less than 1/10 of 1%. Think about that for a second. This council sets a budget, and I, as a manager, have to live. It's my duty to live inside that budget, and we have, to the point that we are within 1/10 of 1% of the budget that this council sets. We take these things seriously, and we have periodic meetings to make sure we are continually within our budget. To break it down to different numbers, it's as if somebody has $50,000 budget to run a household. If you have $50,000 to run a household, at the end of the year, on December 31st, you have $50 left. That means that you had a budget of $50,000, and you came in at $49,950. That's what we did in 2017. We're not taking the one-time things into account, but we ran this budget to $180,000. We're proud of that. but it's very slim. We're talking about liquidity. We're talking about what happens if something happens. We're talking about emergency situations. Now, 2018, as per the charter, it's my duty to provide to you what I believe we will end up with in 2018. You'll see in my budget message to you that we are projecting a $250,000 primary surplus in 2018. Once again, great, we're in a surplus. We're not in a deficit. But that is less than 0.2% where we're at. Now that does not take into account the approximate $5.8 million that's in the reserve right now. So the $5.8 million in the reserve that the county council has full and complete control over, this does not take that into account. This is only our daily operating budget. And obviously, very proud with the support of this council, Luzerne County eliminated approximately $17 million in budgetary deficits in the space of 3 years. In the space of 3 years, we paid off $17 million in deficits. That is an impressive feat. And also, we paid $9 million to a pension fund to make that current, so that we are now paying this year's bills with this year's money. We could have very easily rolled that into another account, been done with this thing, but we decided to do the right thing with that pension. So that's our operating budget. The reason why I'm telling you that is because I came to you in 2017, I said I need a 4% tax increase. County council supported me on that, and you see, we did. We came in just under budget. And 2018, I said we did not need a tax increase based upon the refinancing, and we came in under the $250,000 primary surplus. Once again, I stand before you asking for a 3% increase. Things to consider as you were reviewing this. And listen, I understand this is the first time you're seeing this this evening. You're going to be reviewing this budget line by line with the division heads, the department heads. You're going to be going over exactly what this means to Luzerne County and to the citizens. A couple things to take into account. Our capital bond is quickly diminishing. After County Council's allocation of the 2019 capital projects, after these projects are completed, we have about $600,000 left in unallocated funds in our capital bond. Council, is my recommendation that council take a good hard look at moving some of this year's reserve monies into a true capital fund. The nice thing about having a capital fund is we don't have to borrow in order to do projects. And hopefully that fund will last us. I would say that 2017 and 2018, and maybe Eddie O'Neill and his staff are maybe through a lot of these projects, but their hard work has given us this rotunda project, has given us parking lots, has given us records retention building. All of these allocations that county council has saw fit has put new roofs on almost every county building, new carpets, HVAC. We're going to talk about energy savings. We did a lot of major projects, so hopefully if county council will allocate a large amount of this year's reserve into a capital fund, we'll be able to get through for a bunch of years without getting us to that point. Also, county council should take into account the reduction in the tax revenue anticipation note. Every year the county takes out about, in the past it was $18 million. We reduced that number to $17 million. And we take that out every January in order to cover operating costs until our tax money comes in April. We hope to be able to reduce that some more. If we reduce that, we pay less interest. So you can take this year's funds and allocate those to the tax revenue for next year. And we will not have to borrow as much, saving us interest. That could be an option that county council chooses to take. In addition, and it should come to as no surprise to anybody in this room, we're looking at potential borrowing in 2019. 911 and the voting machines are not going away. Those are issues that we have to come up with. And we're looking for grants, and we're looking for opportunities, and we're trying to tie up a lot of different loose ends with regard to both those things. But we're still talking about an 8-figure borrowing at some point in 2019. If county council chooses to go that route, that means that Standard & Poor's will come in for another review of our credit rating. We currently have a BBB-, the lowest investment grade rating. If that investment grade rating will go up to a BBB or a BBB+, or higher than that, knock wood, that means that interest rate may get better. That means hundreds of thousands of dollars in interest that we won't have to pay. But I will be coming to County Council in 2019 with at least a borrowing for some amount of money in 2019 based upon those two options. If you review the Standard & Poor's credit rating in the report from 2017, where we lacked, where we needed help, was liquidity and budgetary flexibility. We don't have money in the bank, and we don't have a lot of flexibility in the budget. You just saw that. 0.1% we came in under. We don't have a lot of room. Now, we're still on the positive side. That's great. But we're not there yet. These are things that Luzerne County Council needs to take into consideration. Do we have an opportunity to raise our credit rating to a higher investment grade rating, knowing that we may have to borrow money in 2019? In addition, we're following the 5-year plan. These are not just words on a piece of paper for me. These are not just words for the division heads and department heads that we're going to follow up with, and we'll see whatever happens, throwing darts against the wall. We follow this thing. And guess what? It's been successful. We listen to the people who tell us what to do things, and we've been following through. The 2019 budget is a sustainable budget. As I've said, we've gotten through a lot of the dark days here in Luzerne County. We've gotten through the crisis level. Where do we go from here? 2019 budget can lead us the way. Whichever way council decides to go, we will live within that budget, as we have in the past. My proposal will be a 3% tax increase for your review. Now, this is your budget. I look forward to working with you. As we proceed over these next 3 months, obviously, the budget and finance staff, as well as myself, as well as every department head, will be available to you as we proceed throughout this entire process. I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Questions for Mr. Pedrick?
Mr. Haas? Actually, yeah, thanks, Mr. Manager, for speaking to us about the budget. Again, you've talked a lot about successes. We've had significant success here. And I like to say that Luzerne County's turned the corner, but we're not off the block yet. And we still got to have a lot of costs and expenditures. I take issue with a couple things as the budget's presented. I wonder if we could have some corrections as these weeks go by. Number one, there is a new position that was not included here. It's that position in the Elections Bureau that this council denied last budget season, yet it was brought forth just a few months ago. And I take serious issue with that, because we want to make sure we take care of our staff, but again, when we see personnel increase, there's just less money to go around. Back in 2011, when this council started under home rule, there were, as I recall it, 1,620 employees. And then we had those two very painful years, and I believe the full-time employees was 1,430. So we shrunk the size of government by 12%, and now the figure that you give is we have 1,560 employees. If we could see perhaps a calculation about what constitutes a full-time employee, because I know that's part of the issue. I know we've got some part-time, and I'd like to see some clarification on that. But again, this is what happens with government. It tends to creep, and it grows, and it grows, and we're trying to curtail that with maintaining our services and train our staff appropriately. But I have some real misgivings about that. Secondly, the position budget, we don't have last year's figures as far as salary goes, and also that there's a new staff member at least in the Elections Bureau, so that's not reflected here. So if we could see that, I'd really appreciate it as we have our discussions. And the general budget doesn't have the management's proposals in 2018. As I see here, it's the adopted budget and the actual amount, but we don't see what was originally proposed. That would have been helpful for me, like we've seen in years past. And my last issue is the 911 borrowing. I've been talking this for many, many months. I really think if we could really examine having a municipal proxy for those LSA funds, if we could really investigate that, because it's easy to take out a bond and stretch out our payments over the years, but if we can really rein that in and really grab that fruit up front, save the taxpayers a lot of money. And I just think there's a lot more trees we can shake there. Those voting machines, that is an edict from the governor, and we don't have to follow that. And our machines we're not online, they're not vulnerable like the conventional internet site is. So I would like us to actually not support that. Our machines are aged, but that's not how that was packaged. Those federal funds that have come and trickled through to Pennsylvania are only going to amount to just a couple $100,000 for Luzerne County. We need $4 million. it's pennies on
comes
the
out to
dollar that we're gonna
400,000
need.
from that.
So again, I would like us to, and Sheila and I were on the legislative committee, if we could lobby the federal government for more appropriate funds, also lobby the state. We should not put the county taxpayers on for that $4 million, and I will gladly fight against that, or at the very least work towards find alternative funding, because that's a sham. But otherwise, again, proud of a lot of what you do. If you could really address these issues going forward, I'd really appreciate it.
I could address them right now. The new elections position that you discussed is in the position budget for 2019. It's in there for 2019. There are no new positions that I'm requesting. Each of those positions are in there. The FY 2018 position budget that was approved by County Council is currently online, I believe. If not, I'll get it up today. We have never put into the budget my proposals, the county manager's proposals, because they're not the actual budget. If you want to see last year's proposal budget, I'd be happy to provide you last year's proposed budget, but obviously there were a large amount of cuts from my proposed budget from October to December. So what you have in front of you is the same format that I provided to you last year. It's been reviewed by the solicitor's office. This is the format that the charter and the administrative code provides to seek out. We provide all that information. If you need more information, we'll be continually seeking to provide more information.
Yeah, the position budget specifically.
The position budget, we'll be happy to provide you for but the 2019 position budget lists every position in Luzerne County, both full and part-time.
But we don't see the 2018 salaries from last year. We had increases, which the majority supported for the staff, and I that's fine with me. But again, where we've come from, because you're asking for other things too in this budget, would be extremely helpful. Thank you for addressing those.
I do. It's not directly.
You'll be next.
It's not directly related to what you presented tonight, except it goes along with Harry's question about the voting machines. Is that, and I know it comes down to a lot of it is the paper trail that's mandated.
Correct.
Is that mandated by the governor, or is that a federal?
It's the governor's office.
The governor's office.
Well, it's not a mandate from the governor. What they're seeking is the governor is seeking to have a contract by the 2020 presidential election.
Mr. Varensky?
Yes, I'm going to speak for, I think it's 41% of the Luzerne County citizens are senior citizens on fixed income. And some of us have been on fixed income for a number of years. I know I've been on a fixed income since the charter started. And we've had tax increases all the time. And we're always talking about what we've done with our money. I would like to know if someone could write them down for me and send them to me, in their opinion, what has actually been done for us as senior citizens. I realize that roads have been fixed, but many of us don't drive those roads, and many of us don't even have driver's licenses. We're spending money that's been, we just had a big deal about down in Hazleton with all the money that was given to those Hazleton entities down there. But that was grant money. That wasn't because of good management. That was because of grants. I would like to see the county established, or to say, all right, we're going to take next year's budget, and rather than a 3% increase, let's go with a 3% decrease. And let's see how well we can do with a 3% a decrease, because you're telling us senior citizens on fixed income that we're going to have to operate with a 3% less in our incomes next year. Every year, we're faced with it's only 1% or it's only 2%, but we're getting increases in our sewer bills, we're getting increases in our water bills, our gas bills, our other taxes. And when you boil it down, it doesn't come out to $10 or $19, as said. Some of us are facing $100 increases in our taxes, and we can't afford it. People are selling their homes that are senior citizens. People are not doing things that they've earned their whole life to enjoy as a senior citizen because we're raising their taxes. Let's show the citizens of Luzerne County that we're really interested in all citizens and that we want to help the seniors out. I'm proposing that the budget for next year be reduced by 3% and let the manager show his management and his spending abilities by doing it with a 3% decrease. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Yeah.
Mr. Urban?
Harry, I got a couple questions. You said when home rule started and we reduced the size of the staff, it was 1,400? And
From what I recall, Steve, I think it was low 1400s.
Right.
I'm pretty sure it was 1430.
And now we're up to 1,560. So we added 130 positions,
Check the record.
140 positions since the start of home rule in the county.
Well, actually, I think, to
16,
be correct,
20, I think,
we went from about 1620 down to 14-something, and now we're back at 15.
But you went up 100 and some positions, though, since the first or second.
No, we started at 1620 when we came in.
You started out, yeah, but that was because the budget included those reductions that year, which were done at that first year of home rule in 2012. And then after that, since 2012, there's been a steady increase in positions.
No, the first 2 years, Steve, there was decreases.
Well, but after the first 2 years, there's been increases. So the reality is, after it went down, it went back up, like a yo-yo, down, back up. Okay, and that added extra cost. You mentioned healthcare, and that's always been one of my pet peeves. The manager said in the past that he can do whatever he wants with healthcare. He can increase the cost to 12%, or he can make it nothing if he wants to. But he controls the healthcare costs. But yet he's asking for $400,000 more. I think you need to do a little cost containment when it comes to healthcare in the county, and maybe ratchet that payment up another % or 2. You did it in some of the collective bargaining agreements, and I think you need to show the managers that you're going to do it with them too. And that's how we started out when we started, because when I came as a commissioner, nobody was paying nothing. When we started to drive in the train that managers would pay 10% and then gradually remove most of the collective bargaining agreements up. And I think you got most of them up to close to 10, or if not 10. And some of them, new hires are at higher than that, maybe at 15. And so you have something there that you can control. And you say, that's you. We can't do that. You got to do that. According to what you said in the past, you control the healthcare costs, not us. So you're just telling me you want another $400,000 because you don't want to do anything different other than send another bill. You know, we got a house in South Wilkes-Barre that's assessed at $91,000, and the taxes on that collectively are something like $3,600 a year. That's on a $91,000 assessment, only because we live in the city of Wilkes-Barre, which we pay more to the city than we pay to the county, and the school district is probably about 25 to 30% more than it is in Mountaintop and other parts of the county. I think it's not, Hanover is probably the highest, and Wilkes-Barre might be pretty close to second or third highest in the county. So, you know, when Eddie talks about the seniors, that's what you got. You got people in the city that are seniors that are paying outrageous taxes now on based upon their property assessments, and you want more. And that, you know, and I'm not going to vote for any more. I'm really not. You know, throughout the year, we make decisions. We make decisions to give people 2% and 3% raises in collective bargaining agreements over the long term, but that all adds up. Now it's time to pay the piper. We give away KOZs, we give away LERTAs, with no income coming in. Now it's time to pay the piper. We want to now pass all those costs on to the taxpayer. Yeah, sometime in the future, 10, 15 years from now, those properties will be on the books. But the county didn't get anything from that. They might have got some local jobs, but the revenue's not here. I mean, I used to tell Bobby Miracle the same thing. I can't vote for any LERTAs for you. I can't vote for any KOU for you because the county has a revenue shortfall. But we don't seem to understand that yet. We don't get that message yet. So I think you have some things that you can control to bring the cost down. And I would recommend that you do that throughout this budget process, and not only rely on the council to shrink costs. You also said there was several $1 million that are left over in the reserve fund, so you can actually use the reserve fund and eliminate that.
I can't, sir.
We can't. We can use the reserve fund to eliminate that 3% tax.
Council can do what they like with that.
Right, you got it. You got it. All right.
We don't, okay. And just to be clear with regard to the health care, those healthcare costs are done by collective bargaining for all represented individuals. I have no say over those collective bargaining agreements. that have already been negotiated. Many of them do move to 12 and 15% in 2019.
Right. But the managers don't. Managers still at 10.
I just want to be clear so the council, I understand
right.
your point.
I think I understand that, and I think the public understands that. And and you were the one that negotiated them, and you basically brought them to us too, or your staff. You or your staff negotiated them and brought them to us to say yes or no. That's
Correct.
the only thing we get is to say yes or no.
Correct.
Some of them I said yes, and some of them I said no. The other one is, did you add a position down the GIS department for the person to do the flyover research? Is that in here?
I did add that position in 2018.
So that's another position then.
I created that position in 2018's budget.
Yeah, and I just want to clarify something. Mr. Keller has said that he's made a lot of money with flyovers. We were doing flyovers in 2010. And I was down there with Dave Skoronsky going over data from flyovers. So it's not something new that he did. He didn't invent flyovers. They were done in this county before he even became a member of the county's administration or the county attorney.
I didn't invent flyovers.
I never said you did either.
We just do them well.
Any other questions?
We did them well too. We found properties and we added them to the rolls.
Okay. Ms. Houghton.
But he gets a bonus for that.
Ms. Houghton.
I would also like to see the position budget be conformed to the format of the rest of the budget, which includes the 2018 actuals and the 2017 actuals. And then if the position wasn't there in 2017 or 2018, you can have a blank spot there or a zero or whatever if it was created new. And I realize it's not being created new for this, but I do think that the position budget, as one of the budgets that we're going to approve, needs to conform to the format of the rest of the budget. So I would like to see the position budget resubmitted with the 2017 and 2018 actuals.
Questions? Okay, thank you. Budget's introduced. And next Tuesday evening, 5 o'clock, will be our first budget section. It's an open public session and people are invited to come. And we'll begin next Tuesday to work with the budget as presented. Okay. Mr. Perez, Mrs. Perez, and Mr. Griffin. Who wants to start?
Hello, everyone. I'm Greg Griffin, a member of the Citizens Overwatch Committee. The committee is comprised of members who have lost family members to predator drug dealers. Unfortunately, our committee is gaining a lot of members. We lost 154 last year. The district attorney says it's murder. So most of the 154 was murder, according to her, and she's starting to prosecute. We last spoke 2 months ago and urged council, all of you, to ask for federal assistance, and it's clear tonight. With this budget, we need federal assistance for a lot of things. We urge council to ask for federal assistance. Since then, we spoke with the DEA in Philadelphia, Senator Udicic, State Representative Kaufner, Congressman Barletta. Our committee spoke with both newspapers and also spoke to Wilkes-Barre Council and the Wilkes-Barre Mayor and the Wilkes-Barre Police Chief. I called the coroner's office. We attended a Wilkes-Barre Crime Watch meeting. Well, the news is bad. Very bad. Fentanyl is here in Luzerne County and killing record numbers of us. Killing the youth and those addicted, getting off treatment programs, and the predators are on them. They don't have a chance. Another record year. 2015 was a record, 16 was a record, 17 was a record. The coroner says 2018 is going to be horrible. Who's going to want to move here? What corporations, Mr. Pedri, are going to want to locate here? You talk about budget problems and revenue, Mr. Urban. We're in trouble. Luzerne County is 6th in the state in the drug death rate, and that's comparing to Allegheny and Philadelphia, Chester. We're 6th among them. 4 times higher here, the death rate, than New York City. The coroner calls it a plague. I don't know, Mr. Petrie, I don't know how you're going to convince executives to move their families here until we address this issue. This is the same thing with the budget. If we don't combat this, we need more funds budgeted to the DA's office and the drug task force. The drug dealers, the predator drug dealers, the big guys coming in off 81, they put the blinker on when they see Wilkes-Barre. They do not fear our law enforcement. They do not fear our district attorney's office. She filed 5,000 criminal cases last year. Some drug, other criminal. She doesn't have the funds. We have to show these predator drug dealers Luzerne County is off limits, or we're going to be doomed. We're going to be like Chester, Harrisburg, York. I don't know if you've been down to Wilkes-Barre lately. Hazleton, that's Luzerne County. Nanticoke, Edwardsville, Plymouth. Look, we're in trouble here. We have to get these drug dealers on notice that you're going to jail for big time, but the district attorney needs the funds. It's paramount.
Mr. Griffith, your time is up.
If we don't stop these drug dealers, Wyoming Valley is doomed. So we're going to be here. This committee is going to be reporting back to you.
You're welcome anytime.
I got 2 packets with additional information. I just got 2.
Yeah. You can, we'll pass it down to the secretary
Okay.
and the clerk, and we'll
Thank you so
make
much.
sure that everybody gets a copy.
Thank you so much, but we're in big trouble.
Mr. Perez?
My name is Charles Perez. I live in Hanover Township.
Talking to the mic, please.
I'm sorry, I apologize. My name is Charles Perez, and I live in Hanover Township. I'm not a good public speaker. I'm a working, poor kind of guy. Mayor, Mr. Griffin, I'd like to show you a quick video. I think I'd like my son to do the talking. So if it's all right with you, I'd like to flip the laptop and play the video for you.
Yeah, I don't know how, because of being on a laptop, but please try.
Are we still connected?
Yes, we are.
Okay.
Mr. Perez is playing a video on his laptop.
My son was born April 26, 1988. My son passed away from a heroin fentanyl overdose April 25th, 2018. He was 29 years, 364 days old. I'm begging the people in charge of the county I live in, that I was born in, raised in, was taught in, that I go to church in. Find a way to come up with the funds. I'm past. I want to help people, truthfully, I really do. For my son and his son, which you saw in the video. We need, as a community, to come together and stomp this drug epidemic out of our valley and out of our county. You people are in charge. And I ask you from my heart, a broken heart, please find a way to get the money so the cops can get more equipment, more cops on the street, wipe them out, get them out of our town, so that our grandchildren can grow up on the streets I grew up on, play in the yards I played in, and had the friends that I had. Thank you.
Mrs. Perez? Thank you. Very touching, Mr. Perez. Mr. Dombrowski, Ron Dombrowski?
Please call Luzerne County Manager David Pedro at 570-825-1635 and tell him of the wait time of 911 to answer your phone call. Tell him no one should ever have to wait more than 2 or 3 rings, never 2 minutes or more. I experienced a 10 to 15 minute wait for emergency help for one of my tenants as my other tenant called. And I was waiting there a minute or 2 minutes while I keep hearing, do not hang up. This is 911. So I had enough of that. I ran over to the office, okay, and called from there thinking it's a cell phone problem, okay, and that's not. The conclusion then, and as my other tenant called, while I ran and got my paramedic tenant, and on the way back, God put my other tenant, and that was up on the 3rd floor, okay, and then he had to get dressed. And on the way back, God put one of my other tenants who was going to be an RN nurse at Wilkes in the parking lot. They came over, and as we got back, 911 answered the phone 10 to 15 minutes later. When the Wilkes-Barre Fire and Ambulance got there, after they tried to bring my tenant back but failed to, I asked the Wilkes-Barre paramedic how long it took from when they got the call to when they were on their way. He said immediately. I told him what happened, and he said that is Luzerne County, and they do it all the time. He said it is about a 6 or 7 minutes before Luzerne County 911 picks up the phone, and your job, Mr. Pedro, is to call up the Wilkes-Barre police and the paramedics and discuss that with them. I've called you and all the other 911 people. I had enough of you people. The tenant died. Those little girls were right here. You got responsibilities, and you're having...
Mr. Dombrowski, please, I know you're upset, but please...
Those little girls are here. It isn't too much to ask to answer a phone. And I'll go on here. I have called Luzerne County Manager. They had 911 call me on April 23rd, 2015. This is going on long enough. They said that they would resolve the problems. They are liars. After giving them time to correct the problems with some of my suggestions, I called back many times. After getting reports from other people, I now realize they did nothing to solve the problems. The problems are still there, and I found this has been going on for years. I also found out they're bullying volunteer firemen. If they complain, 911 will deliberately avoid calling them and instead will call neighboring or even further communities, so the complaining fire company gets no calls even though emergency is in their community, which they are responsible for. I also found out on July 23rd, 2018, that some individuals, when calling 911, have gotten a recording which says, "All lines are busy, please hold." Instead of solving the problem, they added this message: "This cannot go on. There are lives being put in danger. This problem needs to be solved now." Is my time up?
Yes.
Okay. I'll be back if it isn't correct. Just go over there and correct it. Proper management.
Okay. Dr. Reisinger?
I've been here before on this issue, and I know Mr. Urban knows I'm concerned about all the overgrowth that's in our flow channel on the west side. We've given Mr. Keller a tour 2 years ago. The Seneca Nation came down to review the riverfront also, because that whole west side is federally protected because it's all village and burial sites which are being eroded, and totally disgraceful landscaping through that whole area. And I'm also here to support the opioid people here that have lost people. I have a list of 5 people here that I have known who have died in and around those woods in Kirby Park, the so-called natural area, which is known to you know, just attract the most crazy criminals imagine, and the police refuse to go in there. I have a letter from the district attorney and all the chiefs from the West Side Police to say that they will not patrol it until it's cleaned up. And if it wasn't for me constantly coming here and saying, let's clean it up, no one's doing it. And unfortunately, people are dying, just like this young boy, this young man that died 29, and it's horrible in our community. The lack, I don't know why you don't do something, okay? And here's an article here with the Flood Authority, Mr. Bellman saying, because of all the overgrowth and debris in the flow channel, the levees cannot prevent the next flood, okay? And that's from the Army Corps report. What's it going to take for us to realize that we're going to have another flood? We are. I mean, we lost the Hotel Sterling. In 2011, we had the Ramada. We had floodwaters on the square, and it's getting worse and bigger every year. And now, when we had the ice jam, thank God we had Nesbitt Park cleaned up, because that's where all the ice went. It couldn't get through that debris, which is all overgrown. That park was designed to be an open, beautiful meadow for the community, and it isn't. It's totally overgrown, and it's horrible. We actually bring, on Earth Day, thousands of children down to take a tour of the natural area, not telling them that 5 people have been murdered in there, okay? And I don't know how many people on this council have ever taken the tour through that park. I doubt anybody's been in there this year at all. Has anybody on the council been in Kirby Park natural area?
Yes.
Yeah. Did you see the overgrowth in there?
Yep. Yep.
And what do you think we should do to prevent the next flood?
I don't have all the answers, that's for sure. Do you have the answers, Dr.
Yes, I think we should have a committee to address it, and I think we should have a meeting and making a work session to prevent the next flood. I know the Seneca Nation wants to come down and build the Hotel Sterling, but they won't build it until we clean up the whole west side properly and respectively to their beautiful history here, okay, and make it look like a beautiful park. And at the same time, we could take all the young people who need rehab and get them on a youth cleanup project with the whole riverfront, okay? I used to have 4 rowing clubs here at one time, 40, 50 kids on each team working on the riverfront, okay? All my equipment was thrown in the river by vandals, and my office burned in 2006. That's the last time we've had a rowing program here. And it's a disgrace to our community. I hope that we could have another session to really start working on this. And I know, Mr. Keller, you never came back to help and follow up. I know you were busy with the budget at the time, but you expressed an interest in solving this problem. And I hope you can come through with that. And also, Mr. Haas, if you get a rowing program going here, we're going to have a beautiful new high school. We should have rowers here.
Doctor.
Let's do something for our young people in our community.
Mr. Ola? Mr. Ola?
I hate to bring up that 6-letter word that starts with a B again. One of the things that would really help speed along the process is, remember, you've got about a 200, when you add everything all up, about a $200-something million budget. Does anybody know what degree of specificity means when it comes to finance? Anybody? Don't be bashful. If anybody ever had statistics here, I know we have a former math teacher here. Mr. Pedri announced that we had a budget of so-and-so and so million, so-and-so and so 1,000, so-and-so dollars. What on earth are we doing with this level of specificity, deluding ourselves into thinking that we're smarter than God? As you should have learned by now, a budget is obsolete the day after it's finally approved. It's a target. It's for measurement of performance. It's not a forecast. What on earth are we doing a budget to the nearest dollar? Does it make us feel smarter? I don't think so. You've got a budget that big, you should be doing things to the nearest K. Not the nearest 100, not the nearest dollar. It's just, you've got to get a little smarter here, rather than just waste time and go through motions. I noticed or someone read for me, an article recently in the newspaper that a bunch of companies had applied for assessment reductions, and they all got them. Did anybody see the results of that and the reductions that ensued? Nobody. Nobody reads the paper. Sorry, Jen. They were tremendous. What people here evidently don't understand is when you reduce assessments by millions and millions and millions of dollars to make Mr. Pedri's budget work, someone else has got to pick up and cover those taxes that were lost. Guess who those people are that have to pay those taxes? Oh, I guess, geez, I guess the ghosts do, huh? You can't be a giveaway store. This is not Veterans of America here, folks. We're trying to run a government. It's to take somebody with a $12 million assessment and reduce it to $2 million, somebody ought to be spanked in public. Thank you.
Mr. Troy? I don't see him. Anyone else in the audience who did not submit? Mr. Shiner? Ray?
Good evening. Tonight, the manager presents the budget for next year, and he includes a 3% tax increase. I don't know whether to laugh or cry. Do more with less. That's what you're expecting all the people of this county to do. The people of this county fund what goes on here. But we're being asked to do more with less. We have a lot of senior citizens in this county on fixed budgets. They're not getting raises this year. They probably won't get raises next year. but we'll ask them to do more with less. But we won't ask that of our own government. Why not? Actually, we do. It doesn't seem to happen that way. We're looking at borrowing another $24 million in the coming year after we just paid the debt down to just a little under $300 million. So let's just add another $24 million on top of it. Why not? Some great strides have been made in the county over the past few years, and I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that, and I think we're headed in a positive direction. But as you consider this 3% increase and some of the other items as you go over these weeks in the budget, I'd like you to consider a few other things. Number one, the audit isn't done yet. That was due June 30th. Still not here. The position budget is incorrect again this year. It's a budget. It has to follow the rules for a budget. It has to have prior year comparisons. I had to beg, borrow, and steal last year to try and get it redone, and I got something of a redo. But why do we have to ask every year? We outsourced ADP, our payroll to ADP, costing us quite a chunk of change a year, but we didn't reduce any staffing. We built a records retention center that was promised to be about $1.3 million between acquisition and restoration, and we're now at $2.8 million. The rear entrance to the courthouse had to be redone because there was too much congestion between the employees, the jurors, and the residents coming in to do business. So we did a complete redo of that. And now there's signs on the entrance that tells the employees they have to use the prisoner entrance, which is what I said from the beginning. So we spent all that money to make the employees use the prisoner entrance. So all we did was spend a lot of money for a hallway for the jurors and the residents to come into the courthouse. We spent money on a new IT position. We spent $150,000 on a new website, and our charter is still not on it. The original charter is, but the amended charter has yet to be added to it. We have a great calendar on that website now, and I especially like the meetings. I can't go to them all because they're very lengthy. They take the whole day. They're called example event, and they appear on a regular basis. All of these things have to be considered. One of the items on the budget was raises again. With all of that's happened in this county over the past few years, the progress and the not so great steps, you have to look at rewarding people for what they're doing. You need to look at streamlining things, trimming things down. We were promised with the high-paying division head salaries that we wouldn't have to outsource, but yet we still do. You go through these hearings and you ask different department heads and division heads, well, gee, how many people is that you have that are union? And you don't get a good answer because they don't even know. That's labeled incompetence. And you don't reward it with raises, and you don't reward it with continued employment. These are things that need to be looked at. If you're going to run the government right, you need to run it as though it was your own private business. And you need to look out for the best interests of the people of this county. The residents of this county support this government. Thank you.
Ray.
Good evening, esteemed members of the council. It's been a few months since I've been here, and I heard a lot of talk tonight about the drug problem. Well, it's a very sad problem here in Luzerne County. I am tied up with a van company, and this afternoon my job was to pick up a 14-year-old girl from the Drug and Alcohol Center in the Nescopeck Hospital. This is not the first time I was over there. Here a couple months ago, I had 3 boys, age 14, drug and alcohol. Where's it coming from? they want to blame everybody, but the parents better start looking inside of themselves because there's no supervision there. Then I had four kids in a van one day screaming. The juveniles and the law and the illegals of tomorrow, not the illegal citizens, but criminals of tomorrow. Said to one kid, "Who's your mother?" He says, "I don't know." Said to another kid, "Who's your father?" He says, "I don't know." Yeah, I don't see either one of them. The grandparents are raising these kids. They're all out of line. And people say, you know, put money in for drugs or for treatment of drugs. The problem with the drug neighborhood is the druggies are picked up in Philadelphia, New York City. The cops take them down, buy them a ticket to the bus station, get the hell out of town because the judges turn them loose. There's no incarceration or anything from them. They're free on the street. You know, I had to pick up kids up at the big apartment complex in the city. You see them peddling drugs right on the street corner. No one does them. You know, there's no money here for it. It's this. I lived with them for a while. Every week, we had about 3 ODs from it in this building where I was, and there's only 30 people there. 99% of them were all druggies. We, the people, were paying them. They're declared handicapped, disabled. They get almost $850 a month Social Security. They get about $85 in food stamps, plus free medical, dental, everything else. They're still drinking and snorting drugs, drinking, shooting, whatever they want to do. And you wonder where the communities are going to hell. And one girl I had talking to up there, I said, "Where are you getting the drugs?" She says, "My grandmother buys them and gives them to me." You know, what are you going to do? How are you going to solve the problem? It's never going to be solved. You got to live with it. And I'm sorry about losing your son. You know, as I said, today I had a 14-year-old girl. It's a tragedy to see this 14-year-old girl. Taking her home, I never took her to where her mother was because her mother's is a druggie. She's living with another relative. You know, it's a bigger problem that's brought into this area because the cops out of the area, Philadelphia, New York, where they're picking them up, know that there's no room in the jails for them. They're going to throw them out on the street and you buy them a bus ticket out of town. Because if you read the newspaper, how many of these people that are up here get caught for murders, what have you, and are not from this area?
Thank you.
You're welcome. Have a good night, ladies and gentlemen. It's been swell.
Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Ms. Rakes, Mr. Keller, second. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Take a 5-minute break and allow McClure to set up for their presentation, and we'll begin at 20 out.
Good job.
Oh,
Good job.
Brett. Behavior. Thank you. He works for the same people you work for now. Or did?
Yeah.
Okay. Dave. Guy stood up Dombrowski. I'm sure Greg probably knows.
I do agree, Joe, about
Probably none of that's true, right?
I was told.
Am I correct in saying that all that stuff is recorded down there? You know exactly when the call came in, how long it was on, and that? Okay. Yeah, well, he adds to the list. Okay. Okay.
I don't have.
Okay. I mean, I figured that, and that's why I didn't get involved in the back and forth. Where are we going to get the money for the opioids? Oh. Yeah.
I'm all for it.
And our drug and alcohol is getting money, fed money, right?
I'm all for it.
Yeah. The problem is, money is only one part of it. You have to have a whole total buy-in, like the community and the parents.
I reviewed some of the contracts for DNA center.
Yeah.
A lot of big money.
Yeah.
Someone having an actual.
Yeah.
Okay. I saw a large amount of grant there. I don't know what, I never saw the operation. It's working.
Well, I think if it's a bigger Steve, a drug and alcohol guy, he was here and made that presentation, explained all that stuff. And that's 2 weeks ago tomorrow. They had that conference up at the Woodlands, and that was a large part of it. What's going on, who's involved, what's the partnerships.
One thing is whether it's related or related, there is no laws where you can actually get something put somewhere for help. Everything is voluntary.
Yeah.
So if the person doesn't want to
Yeah.
and you don't want to put the guy who buys a couple six-pack on the weekend. But when you have somebody who
Well, you know where the problem guys are.
out of 30 days, they're probably or high 29.
Yep.
Most people can take care of themselves. They need to be, I don't want to say incarcerated, but in a
help, yeah.
And it's not, you can go in and walk out tomorrow, you're in there for
28 days is what they usually do.
Those are all your questions,
No.
anyways.
You know, funding involved, you have expenses, you have lives that go on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There's no enforcement.
For him to make a statement that they take him on the bus and get the hell out of town. Like, can you verify something like that? And for a girl to say to him, my grandmother died. Grandmother? Yeah, I'm sure. Sure. Like I always say, you learn nothing good on school buses. He's going to, he won't go for anything in the budget, but he's going to say that he's going to get money for it. 2 years ago, we gave her money to add a first assistant for drugs and alcohol. So they could promote some of them. Yeah, we did that 2 years ago. You're smart. Yep. 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 You're not getting any help from jail.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
A little, huh?
I'm happy to be back.
No. Go ahead.
What's that?
No. He's the guy I don't know. I'm surprised to see him. That one. something where they're linked to that. As a guy, I'll get everybody to cut the council. Okay, if we could ask everybody to return to their seats, please.
Never come to any meeting. Leave.
Yeah, like I did last time. He walked right by me. We never even exchanged hellos. No, I won't talk to him.
Mr. Kelleher? Thurman. Now they're calling him Thurman again. Jesus Christ. Roll call, please.
Mr. Brzezinski.
Here.
Mr. Haas.
Present.
Ms. South.
Here.
Mr. Kelleher.
Here.
Mr. Perry.
Here.
Ms. Sedman.
Here.
Mr. Shea.
He stepped out. He should be back.
Mr. Urban.
Here.
Mr. Vogt.
Here.
Ms. Wickes.
Present.
Mr. McGinley.
Present.
10.
Do we have any additions or deletions from the work session agenda? Hearing none, do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Wickes, Mr. Vo, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. The first item is a McClure presentation. This is the group that has been doing the energy savings work with the county for the past year, roughly.
Yep.
So this would be an update on what's transpired and what you're projecting going forward.
Okay.
Right.
Good evening, council.
Yourself and your assistant, or
yes. My name is Shane Hillman, Vice President with McClure Company. This is Sean Skethway, the project manager for McClure Company. He was essentially the daily point of contact for McClure on the job. So less than a year ago, we were before you, and you approved our contract, the Guaranteed Energy Savings Agreement. Since then, we went through the engineering, and we've gone through all the construction of those items. So we're here to give you an update on a little bit of background and remind you in case anybody wasn't here at the time, and then let you know where we're currently at and the next steps forward. So the agenda is background, some utility data, just so you can just remember, what you spend on your major facilities. A list of the energy conservation measures, a financial summary, current construction status, and the next steps. So this all started back in 2015. The county put out a competitive RFP to look for companies that do what we do, guaranteed energy savings agreements. From that point, we were selected based off a set of criteria. We entered into what's called an investment grade audit, which is a exhaustive engineering effort to go through all your facilities and relay back to you our recommendations to not only save energy but also improve your infrastructures. So that lasted about 24 months. The initial list was 20 energy conservation measures through different criteria and a collaborative effort with your administration team and youth council. We pared that list down to 9. So we went from 20 to 9 ECMs, which served as the basis for the Guaranteed Energy Savings Agreement, which you all approved about a year ago this evening. The next slide is just a snapshot of your utility data per building. This is not all your facilities. This is your heavy lifters on the utility side. And really, to no surprise, you don't need to be an energy expert, but you expect the 911 center and the prison to use the most energy because they don't shut down. They're continuously operating. So it's not a surprise to see those facilities the highest energy users. And you move on down the line as buildings are less occupied, they use less energy. There's two metrics that we look at, BTUs per square foot and dollars per square foot. It's a very quick engineering analysis that we can look at. So, for example, if the Brominski building was the highest EUI or energy use index or BTUs a square foot, that would send off, throw up some red flags for us. So again, not to get into the technical merits of all this, but just to show you, give you a snapshot of the way your facilities were performing before the project. Here is the list of the final ECMs, or energy conservation measures. I'll run through them real quick. The countywide lighting upgrades, that's essentially converting everything that we could from fluorescent or metal halide or high pressure sodium to LED. Building envelope upgrades, we seal the buildings, keep infiltration air from coming in and tempered air from going out. Insulation upgrades, recommissioning is taking an existing system and fine-tuning it. So similarly, how you might take your car into an auto repair shop, it's working, but it doesn't seem to be working right. That's the same thing with your systems. We get it to work how it was originally designed. Prison plumbing upgrades is typically a huge water and sewer saving component because of the nature of the facility. There's a lot of showers, toilets, sinks. There's a lot of water consumption. Countywide plumbing upgrades, same reason, although albeit on a smaller scale than the prison. The courthouse boiler upgrades, if you remember, that was a pretty big subject. You had a very old steam line underground that was in constant disrepair. You're spending quite a bit of money on an annual basis trying to repair that. We have now severed that line. It is severed from the central plant located up by the prison, and the courthouse is now on its own standalone system. So new gas service came in, new boilers into the building, so you're not susceptible to that underground line anymore. Central steam plant upgrades, you had two boilers in that plant that were, again, obsolete and in disrepair. One of them actually did not operate, so we removed those and put in a new unit along with the unit that was approximately 10 years old, in addition to some ancillary equipment to support the new boiler. The prison domestic hot water upgrade, again, an ongoing issue. In the prison space, we're going to see some photos, but space is very limited in the building, let alone try to find a place to house some mechanical systems. So we actually prefabricated a separate building, for lack of better terms, pre-built it on our shop, shipped it up on a truck, and placed it in site and put it in service. Here's the same ECMs again. If you're wondering, which items or utilities they save, this gives a quick snapshot. Again, it's not just electric, it's not just gas, but there's water and sewer savings, operations and maintenance, and even some utility rebates from PPL. A quick snapshot of the financial summary. The total project cost was slightly above $3.9 million. The 20-year energy savings, again, per the legislation of Act 39, these have to be guaranteed. We're going to talk about that in the next slide or so, but these are contractually guaranteed savings. This is the only way the county can enter into a contract like this with a company like McClure. The 20-year avoided capital savings, so equipment you were replacing anyways, was valued at $2.2 million, which brings your total 20-year savings to $7.5 million. So again, a good investment, because this was a mix of capital improvements and energy saving upgrades. This wasn't just a way to add to your bottom line to add some additional revenue or however you want to market. This was mixing some lights with some boilers and making a good financial decision. So the construction schedule, as I mentioned, the contract was approved, I think, sometime mid-November of 2017. We immediately went into permitting and engineering. We were complete with that in December of 2017. We were on site, mobilized January 2018. The courthouse boiler installation was complete in February 2018 with one caveat. We were at the mercy of the gas utility to get the utility on site. So even though the boilers were in place, it took several months for the service to come in, but it is now complete. The prison domestic water heater, again, was roughly substantially complete in April 2017. The prison plumbing upgrades in May of 2018. Central plant, I'm not going to go down the whole list, but you can see that it was pretty systematic, and it's not that these were started on those dates. Everything was really a domino effect, but these are just the major milestones. So the point that we're at right now is what we call substantially complete. There's still some items, some punch list items that we need to go through and finish up. There is a commissioning effort, and what that means is we have the systems installed the way they're engineered, but there's another tuning process that you have to go through, and that's one of the value of these contracts, is that we want to go through that extra step so you can fully utilize the savings. We want to do that because we're contractually obligated. You all want us to do that because you want to reap the greatest benefit. And then we're going to enter into the measurement and verification process, which is January 2019 to January 2020. I'm going to talk about the M&V after these photos, but here's some photos. This is the prefabricated modular box that we built off-site and shipped it in. Inside are the 2 water heaters for the prison. So again, there wasn't really any room to put it inside the building. This is a very economical and creative way to do it, especially in this kind of facility. This is a little bit hard to see, but if you're familiar with this building, you can get a little bit of appreciation for where these boilers are at. They're in a very tight space in the basement. We were originally looking up on the top floor, although just at the end of the day, it wasn't all that conducive compared to where they're at now. So the space worked out great. It's going to be easier to maintain. Nobody would know they're there. It was otherwise, unutilized space to begin with. So here's a picture of it. You can get a sense of how tight it was to not only fit them in there, but then work around and get things situated. This is over in the central plant. Again, there's the picture on the right is the upper side of the boiler, but the picture on the left is it's called a deaerator tank. It's an ancillary component to the steam system. It was a piece of equipment that was failed. So next steps from here, outside of finishing the punch list and the commissioning process, is by contract. Again, these are guaranteed energy savings, so we have to provide you with a measurement and verification report at the end of contract year 1. So that's not today year 1. It's essentially 2 years from when the contract was executed. But what we're going to come back with is a construction period report, which is going to end here next month. It's a 12-month construction period. And so sometime in March of 2018, we're going to have a snapshot of what you saved during the construction period. One common question is, what's the difference between a construction period and year 1? Construction period, it took us 9 months to bring everything online, so it's not like, we signed the contract, we flipped a switch, and you started saving all the savings that we dictated. So it comes online, but we'll be able to show you how that was projected, and then 1 year after that, so 1 year after next month, starts your contract year 1. And that report will be available roughly March of 2020.
Thank you. So you're going to look at the utility costs beginning January of 2019 to January of 2020, correct?
Roughly. Technically, it'll be
in that time.
Mid-November.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you'll compare it with what time frame?
The time frame that we used for the baseline, which I think was the 2016. It's 2014 through 2016, and we use an average to pull out the anomalies.
So you use like 3 years of utility information and get an average of that?
Yes.
And that's your base? And then you use the year following your construction and finalization.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you. Questions? Yes, Ms. Lund.
On page 5 of your the handout, you list the 9 energy conservation measures, and comparing it to the construction schedule, there is just no mention of the building envelope upgrades and the countywide plumbing upgrades. Where do they stand?
They started approximately in January of 2018, and then they were finished towards the end of the contract. They were basically done the whole thing.
Okay, so they are done?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Segment?
Yes, with the new boilers and have there been any, I guess, the gas company would give us better rate because of these new boilers we were putting in?
Not necessarily, because
Like you sometimes get if you do certain things at your home. You know, they will sometimes give you a bonus or...
We were able to negotiate with UGI. Eddie O'Neill handled a big portion of that.
Because of the new system?
Well, I think it's because of the usage more
Okay.
than anything else. Is that right, Eddie? Or?
Basically, a contract is what it was.
Right.
It really didn't have a whole lot to do with the change in utilization. We just entered into a contract with UGI.
Well, we did receive a rebate from PP&L for the lighting, I believe, right?
yes, roughly $50,000-ish dollars.
And that was based on the fact that you changed the lighting out.
Correct.
Correct.
Yep.
Okay.
So you did
But
get it.
those are just the kind of things I was wondering if
Yep.
there have been any rebates for.
Yep.
Or we expect them at some point.
So you're going to come back in March with an update, correct? That's your plan?
Yeah, we'll compile a report, we'll submit it, and then if you all would like to have a verbal presentation, we can do that.
Okay. Any other questions?
Mr. McGinley?
Yes.
If I can just say, McClure's been at this for now since 2015. I think you submitted the proposal, right? And I was the solicitor's office at the time. Eddie, Mr. Stark, Mr. Dudek, Mr. McIntyre, have worked with McClure very, very closely over the past couple of months, over this past year. And I would say that every time we needed something, McClure was there. They answered questions. They worked with us even to the point of prefabricating a piece of machinery at their plant and bringing it up in order to work with us. So I just wanted to let council know that McClure has been working with us over this past entire year. This is a portion of the energy savings project, and I'll have Mr. O'Neill talk about the next portion.
Mr. O'Neill or Mr. Sweats?
Either one.
Thank you very much. We appreciate the information. Thank you for the
You're welcome. Thank you.
Mr. O'Neill and Mr. Sweats, or who's going to be the presenter here? Mr. Sweats, why don't you move up in that first aisle, because I think we're going to have some questions for you.
Council, as most of you are probably aware from the information you have in your packets, and as Sean had mentioned in his presentation, there were a larger number of ECMs that were originally scheduled, and that is in fact what the bond was based upon. It was approximately $8 million, $7,908,112. What we had decided to do before the contract was signed, and it was upon the advice of the consultant that we hired to review the proposal, where they felt that some of the capital improvements in the remaining ECMs we would benefit from trying to handle internally and doing ourselves, and be able to get reduced prices on those large-scale projects. Some of those did not have a very high payback on them, if any at all. But for example, we have undertaken 2 of those projects. One is complete as of, I believe, August or July, and that was the chiller replacement project for the prison. And that, for example, we were able to realize the savings of well over $100,000. I believe it was about $130,000. I don't have the number in front of me, but it was approximately $130,000 over the price that was given by McClure. The second project that we are currently underway with, that Bill McIntosh is working on and overseeing, is the replacement of the courthouse switchgear. And that as well, we hope to see a substantial savings over the estimate that was provided by McClure. So by doing this in-house with the staff that we have, bidding it ourselves, as opposed to lumping it in to this project, we're hoping to realize a substantial savings over the remaining modules. The funds that are left in that bond fund technically have been allocated for the remaining items on that list, a majority of them being related to our prison facility. I will tell you that a couple of the items that we have undertaken that I believe may have been handed out, I don't know exactly what information was given to council, but there are some small-scale projects that, for reasons that I'm not certain of, were carved out of the original project, such as LED retrofits for the courtrooms in the courthouse. That was something that McClure had not included in the assessment or their audit, I believe, unless I'm mistaken, Sean. Was that something that was... So Mr. McIntosh and Mr. Stark took that upon themselves, did a large majority of the design on that, and we were able to actually accomplish that project by bidding out. We purchased the equipment, materials ourselves, and we hired an outside contractor through an RFP process to complete that task. So there were some small-scale projects such as that that did and will see returns on reduced energy costs and utilization that we have undertaken.
So it looks like on the sheet that was provided, and I think Mr. Sweats, you reviewed this, right?
Yeah.
Looks like from number 10 down, those are projects that we have done internally, separate from McClure's project. Is that correct?
From items 10 down to the ones that we did carve out of McClure's
so
project.
Courthouse electrical switchgear, appears that there's no energy savings per se, correct?
That's correct.
Minimum security HVAC, same, but you were able to gather some savings, it looks like, with prison existing AHU, which I'm not sure what that is.
Well,
prison.
If you were to look at items 10 through 12F, the only two that we have really undertaken to this point are items 10 and items 12C.
Okay.
The remaining items are outstanding and are on the list going forward to work on.
Looks like the 12A and 12B have some potential energy savings.
That's correct.
Question.
Yes.
If you using all this energy saving borrowed money on these projects?
Correct.
I thought you could only use that money if you're actually going to have an energy saving.
No, as Shane pointed out in his presentation, this project, under legislation, and in a majority of the cases, I believe, includes not only energy savings items, but it includes capital upgrades that may be necessary as long as you can offset the cost with the savings from the projects that will reduce utilization.
All right.
And that's what we did. The switchgear, again, was a necessity that we had to undertake. We're hoping to realize a pretty substantial savings there, but that was a necessity. That had been lumped into this project and was going to be paid for with the savings from the energy savings items that are on here. So.
Okay.
Anyone else for Mr. O'Neill or Mr. Sweats?
So we just wanted to provide council with an update as to where we're at. This was the first borrowing under home rule for this energy savings project. I like this project because it does guarantee a savings for a large portion of it with McClure, and then the other portion we're taking on in-house in order to move forward with. We took a good hard look at our utilities, and we think we could see some savings in the 2020 budget. based upon some of the steps that we've taken here. We won't know those numbers until probably November, December of 2019. But we're setting forward. We're setting forward how we're going to be moving forward. And I would say that everything's been working here pretty well. Mr. McIntyre scared me a little bit with he's an electrical engineer by nature, by trade. And when he started talking to me about the switchgear, I'm happy we're getting it done.
Thank you. Mr. Pedri?
Council, this is division reports for September of 2018. Obviously, I'll be happy to answer any questions. One thing that I wanted to point out was County Council talked about in this room the Division Street Bridge. This was talked about for a long time. We put it into the capital budget. We wanted to get something done on it. I'm thrilled to say that through the federal grant funding from the revolving loan fund, we're able to get that completed. That Division Street Bridge will be reopened in the next 2 years. And once it is completed, Hanover and Wilkes-Barre City have agreed to have a joint maintenance on that agreement, and Hanover Township will take over that bridge as well. Oxford Street Bridge as well will be taken over by that account as well. So those are two major bridges in the Hanover area, the southern Wilkes-Barre area that we're thrilled to have.
Mr. Pedri, they'll be for general traffic, not just for emergency?
Correct, yes, for general traffic all the way. Yeah, that was a big move from there, yes. and the people who were there that day were really appreciative of that. As I don't know if council also saw one of my emails, we were able to get over a $500,000 grant for South and North Beisels Road in Butler Township. This for a bike lane. This is a pretty heavily traveled road in Butler Township through, this is multimodal monies. And I want to thank Michelle Sparich, Larry Plesh, and Eddie O'Neill for their hard work on that project. But that project, once again, will be a major renovation of those roads. Butler Township has agreed to take on Foothills Road when that's being completed. So we're looking to lower the number of miles of roads that the county owns. We're in discussions with them now on Beisels Road as well, to see if this is something that they would be interested in taking on as well. So the county is trying to get rid of bridges and roads by fixing them and turning them over, and we're doing our best.
I recommend you talk to them about Honey Hole Road too, because part of that's in Butler Township.
Yeah, we have those 3 bridges in Honey Hole Road.
But you also have the whole Honey Hole Road from 309 to 487.
We have
Part of it's in Denison, I believe, and part of it's in Butler, but it's, you know, that was one of those that was done with federal highway money when it was completed. And so I would hope you would talk to both of them and show them the numbers, show them the money, go there with the numbers from the legislation that was passed when the 30-cent gas tax was added. Show them the money that they would be getting if they took over those roads. I think that would be an incentive, but just don't say, hey, we'd like you to take them over, but show them what they get.
Yep. They've been pretty receptive so far, and I appreciate that, and we're going to continue to work on that and any other municipalities that are interested in moving to the top of the list.
Any questions?
I'd like to take a moment to point out some items which I think are relative to some of the discussion we heard earlier this evening. On page 6 of the division reports, the Luzerne County Cares Community Expo was the Wednesday after our last meeting. That was a great job. They really had a lot of people attending, a lot of positive information, a lot of good partnerships. I think it was a great first step in that area. And certainly the Human Services Department should be commended for their efforts there. And then also down below that, I would hope people would recognize the fact that the county manager and the district attorney have launched a Stop Coalition. And you can see that it's dedicated to combating the opioid epidemic and stopping overdoses in our community. So the group of people who were a little earlier this evening and spoke about some of the problems we face there, you know, there are people working on that and they're making efforts. So we thank them for their efforts and continue to do that good work. Anyone else?
Yep. Go ahead.
Ms. Wakes first and then Mr. Urban.
Well, Thank you. One of my new favorite topics, bridges. Some questions. On page 15, you refer to the three truss bridge rehabilitations. Are any of those bridges perhaps on Bridge Road in Hollenbach Township? Because I don't see any identification here as to where they are.
Mr. O'Neill?
I want to defer to Mr. O'Neill on that. They just take off.
Mr. O'Neill, you have a question about bridge?
Mr. O'Neill?
The three truss bridge rehabilitations, are one of those the Hollenbach Township one?
I'd have to verify that. I don't
Okay.
have that information.
Could you get back to me about
I can absolutely.
I really appreciate that, because the reason I ask is they're all three currently closed, and I'm assuming they're all over 100 years old, and I immediately think of the Hollenbach Township Bridge on Bridge Road, and people are very concerned about that one. And my other question, Blytheburn Road Bridge, the superstructure replacement. I know we talked about it before, and the bid was awarded, and construction was scheduled to begin in September, and it hasn't yet. Do you know how close construction is?
I know the design was completed. I believe that may be scheduled for next month, but I'll have to confirm that as well. Let me.
But people are asking, so. Thank you. I don't know. I think that's in the Rice Township section and not the Dorrance Township section. I may be wrong. Maybe Dorrance Township.
So your questions were specifically Blytheburn and Hollenbach Township.
Okay.
Bridge.
Is that the bridge right below?
It is
Interstate
Rice.
80?
Yeah, it's right below.
80?
It's right below 81. Yeah, that is Rice.
That's Rice, yeah. Rice is by the dam.
Thank you for pointing that out, Mr. Kelleher.
Mr. Urban?
Yeah. This is for the warden, I guess. You know, we made a big deal last year about we're going to reduce the number of KPSs. We're going to send notices to people who are supposed to be in court. And I'm looking on this report, and I see 91 people incarcerated in September for failing to appear. 91. I don't think there's been a change. You know, to me, there's a lot of talk about what we're doing, but the numbers are on the paper. 91 people were arrested for not showing up to court. That's a big number, big number. Page 4, 421. And another one is your overall population, you get an increase in one and a decrease in the other, but I'm looking at holds for others. 36 people you're holding for other facilities. Are you getting paid for these 36? Or are you just doing this out of favor? I mean, I don't think you're sending that many people out anymore, are you?
Mr. Rakovich?
I do not have the number of KPSs that we are having in the prison per month. 91. At 91 for this month. I do believe that is a significant drop compared to the 125 that we used to have per month.
It's not a significant drop. Significant to me would be about 30 or 40. I mean, the public defender said he was going to send notices to everybody. Everybody was going to get a public defender.
Correct.
They were going to make sure that they're there. I recommend that you put the court dates on the internet. If these people don't know, they can go out there and pull up the website and see when their hearing is. You know, you go to some counties in this country and there's a TV in the hallway showing who's in what courtroom. Are these people just not showing up? They don't care? I mean, again, it's costing us money because, in my opinion, somebody in the administration, somebody in your facility, somebody in the public defender's office didn't follow up.
Here's where we've seen, Mr. Urban, the number of KPSs, and we've been studying this pretty closely.
Oh.
It's the people who are, and numbers have gone down because we were about 120. So you said we were at
91 is not a decrease to me.
Well, that's
significant.
That's a quarter. That's a 25% decrease. So
significant.
Well, I think that's significant, but you know, you don't have to think that, Mr. Urban. The people who are getting KPSs right now are individuals who are charged with misdemeanors and leave. So somebody, you know, gets in a bar fight. Okay, go home. You get the papers in the mail. In the time they get the papers in the mail, they've moved. They don't give the phone number to the police department. It was their mother's house, their girlfriend's address, something along those lines, and then they don't show up to court. and then they get a capias and issue warrant issue for their arrest. Those are the people who get the capias right now. What we've seen is that the public defender's office through the notification system has lowered the number of capias. If you get a public defender, you're more than, I think, 3 or 4 times likely to actually get to court. But we can't get these people to get the papers that night. So police officers don't have to charge somebody immediately. And those are the people who are really looking to have capias charged with them.
Normally, though, you show them a driver's license, you some type of ID with an address on, you know. I mean, you know, I'm not born yesterday. I didn't fall off a turnip truck, you know. I think you need to do a better job. That's the bottom line. Don't give me any explanation. Do a better job at getting these numbers down, because this is costing the taxpayers money. What's it, almost $100 a day to put somebody in jail and keep them in there? These people are in there 2 to 3 days on average. So we're talking some serious money here. And again, 36 holds for other facilities. Are you getting paid for these holds?
Hold on a second. Mr. Urban, if you believe that criminals are providing accurate information and information to police departments upon getting arrested, then maybe you did fall off a turf truck.
Maybe.
Because that's not what happens.
They don't. They just give, everybody gives a phony. Well, that's an additional charge to me, and that might be a felony now, okay?
Yeah,
it's an additional charge and a felony. You better be following up on it. The DA better be following up on it.
Okay, I think we made the point on that one.
And the other point, if I may, is the prison doesn't issue capias, nor do we lift them.
I know you don't. But now I'm talking about the holds. 36 people.
36 holds, yes.
Holds for other facilities.
That is true. If we have an individual who's at another county facility or another state facility, if they're brought into our facility to await court, so they have a court date in 2 days in front of one of our judges here, and they scheduled him for trial in Luzerne County while he's in another facility, we bring them back into the prison. We will hold them until they're done with the court, and then they will return. Each one of those is
every one of these whole 36 were people who were brought in from other facilities because they had to go in front of a judge in this county.
Not every one of them, no.
Okay, well, I like to see a better breakdown of other than hold on here.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? Yes, Ms. Hock.
Yes, I'd just like a clarification on page 4, Division of Budget and Finance. The ADP item, it says the county ADP project included both the change to one payroll cycle and the handoff to ADP scheduled for the end of November. So attached to our to the pay vouchers for the last several pays has been a schedule of how the paychecks are going to be unified. So we're going to one payroll cycle. The ADP contract was sold to this council saying we had to do it in order to unify this payroll. But I just want to make sure I understand that this is being done, unification of the payroll is being done by our own employees. It's not being handed off to ADP. Is that correct?
No.
No?
A large portion of it is being...
Mr. Sweats, please.
Sure, thanks, Ms. Howe. So yes, there are 2 separate points. There's a point of the payroll and there's a point of the contract. So ADP will take over, as the notice says, at the end of November. When the ADP was here for the contract, we said that one of the main, there was 3 selling points, and one of them was the one payroll cycle. We worked with ADP to come up with this one payroll cycle. Again, we were not the payroll experts. When we put out the RFP, one of the things we talked about was one payroll cycle, and it was determined through collaboration to have one payroll cycle happen before they took over. So it's a collaboration with us and ADP.
Well, sure, and the ADP contract actually said they were not going to be responsible for unifying the payroll cycle. But my point is that it's not being turned over to them until then, and we waited 7 years to shift 4 payrolls so that we could get it unified, but it's still being done before ADP takes over the payroll. The other item on here is the audit update. So we have the final audit that was submitted through Emma, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Has Clifton Larson Allen been paid in full?
They are paid in full for the work in the audit. I've got a bill for the additional work. And I did say when we got a total for that, I would give it to council. I just got one. I cannot say if that's the final bill. I'm still checking with CLA. But for the regular contract of the $101,000 that council approved, they were paid for that. I believe you asked about a month ago, and Mr. John said it was about $900. I have a bill downstairs for $14,000. That gets paid out of the budget and finance line for additional work. And once we have a total, I'll present it to the whole council. I just want to make sure that's the final bill before.
So far it's $14,000 above and beyond what we already paid, what
Correct.
we already were contracted for.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Anyone else? Thank you. Public comment. Mr. Ola?
Is it only on this subject?
It can be on any subject, sir. Mr. Ola is first, though, please. Excuse me. Mr. Ola is first, please. Thank you.
For the record, unified payroll cycle could have been done without ADP easily, more easily, just for historical sake. It could have been done before New World. Write it down. Many ways to do it. One of these days, let me calm myself down. One of these days, when someone doesn't know how to do something, they should ask for help. Another example is, I still can't imagine how an audit can take this long. You know, I used to say goodbye to Pete's for $1 billion plus company within 2 weeks. Up in New England, they prepare an annual report to the people by M2, week 2. And that's an audited annual report. We're doing something completely wrong. It's got to be the approach. And you also got to remember, out in civilization, auditors, external auditors do operational audit as well as just plain fiduciary. Pennsylvania, because of our Constitution and our codes, auditors from the outside have to decide whether they're going to audit to GASB, GAAP, etc., or whether they're going to audit against the limitations that our Constitution and our codes get in their way. Naturally, they choose the easy way out, and I would too. So, you know, we're not getting a whole lot for our money. The other point is, someone read to me the newspaper article about the contract for the county manager. It's amazing to me that we talk about merit pay as if we know something about, or merit performance, either or, as if we know what it is. One of the key constructs of such a plan is that you know, going into the year for each of your employees, so that the employee and the manager both know what constitutes a 2, a 3, a 4, or a 5 review. Naturally, a 1 review is gone by sundown. Oh, I forgot, we're talking government here. I didn't see that anywhere in the contract, which basically says that Dave could leave on a 6-month hiatus to Bora Bora, and he'd still get his salary, according to your contract. Gee, I'd love to trade positions with you.
Mr. Ola.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Ostrowski.
The solutions of 911 management problems. Having 4 people only answer the phone at 911 is mathematically wrong. If 15 people work on a shift, and this is from 911, the first time the lady talked to me, and she was very nice the first time and helpful, but after that, nothing. They don't want to listen. If 15 people work on a shift, and she told me it's the 7th busiest 911 in the state of Pennsylvania. If 15 people work on the shift, 4 people in answering the 911 phone calls is completely wrong. 6 people are police dispatchers, 3 are fire and EMS, and 2 are floor supervisors. It should be at least 10 people answering the phone on 911 with the other 6 police dispatchers and 3 fire and EMS be only a second responsibility of their 911 job call taking. And Mr. Urban just told me that Bucks County, the people there, they answer the phone and they dispatch two. That is Mr. Pedro. That is what you should transfer it over to have your employees work more efficiently, because that's what they're discussing. If you copy, ask Mr. Urban, he knows all about it, the Bucks County one. This isn't something I should even be doing. This should be 911 should be answering the phone. Okay, there's something terribly wrong. Okay. Okay. Now, as far as this $20 million, this is number one is saving people's lives. That's all. Now, my father taught me, it's all on your responsibility. It's Mr. Pedro's responsibility now. Okay? It's completely, anyone who dies from this point forward is completely your fault, because I found out some people did die. Okay? It's not, so I'm putting the public, as my father said, on to where it belongs. Shine the light on you. The $20 million, I've already talked to King's College. This is what you're wrong about. Okay? King's College wants to do it for free. The computer department, they want to help the community. They'll look over everything that you got and see, because $20 million, I'd like to see what they're buying. That's just common. So the students will do it for free and the teachers will do it. It's already all set up. It's your job to go over there. Number two, with all of this you're discussing, there's all other colleges also. Everything involved, you use the people that want to help, and it's free. And these are people of your same caliber. These aren't people who can't do it. So those are the suggestions. It's up now, it's completely up to you. And the public, the TV and them, it's their responsibility to be on you.
Anyone else? Motion to adjourn? Mr. Urban, Ms. Saban, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.